Okay, here we are with the third video for chapter 32. This one's on aggregate supply. Hopefully by now you've watched the Clifford video on aggregate supply, aggregate demand, long-run aggregate supply, the equilibrium of all of those. He does a very good job of explaining all of that. I'm going to focus in this video just on aggregate supply and the things that I want to emphasize about it to try to help you pass the AP exam. So your book identifies three time periods: the immediate short run, the short run, and the long run in regard to aggregate supply. The immediate short run is a valid concept. It's the time period during which no prices are flexible, input prices or output prices. And that's great. You saw that the line is a flat line at the price level at that point. That's not going to be on the AP exam. It's not something that we're going to worry about in this course. We're going to focus on the short run aggregate supply and the long run aggregate supply curve. So the short run aggregate supply curve, first off, the short run is defined as the time period during which output prices are flexible. That means the prices that are charged at the grocery store or at the gas pump or at the mall where you're actually buying things, consumers are buying things. Those are the output prices. Input prices are the prices of labor, the price of gasoline, the price of energy, the price of raw materials or iron ore to make products. Those are the ones that we're going to hold constant. They're inflexible. The output prices are flexible. So again, in macroeconomics, the vertical axis is the price level. The horizontal axis is the GDP. Now, there was a question about, is this real GDP or nominal GDP? It's real GDP. So you could put GDP sub R there. You could write the word real GDP. But if you just write GDP, they're going to assume on the AP exam that you know that that's the real GDP, real output of the economy. All right, so the aggregate supply in the short run is this upward sloping line, and we're going to label it, of course, AS, aggregate supply. It's assuming that, as I said, the output prices are flexible, and that's what this vertical axis is the output prices. So as price level rises, businessmen are seeing some short-run profits to be made. If I make more of this stuff, I can sell it at a higher price. So they're going to make more stuff. Aggregate and the GDP or the rate of GDP production will increase, and at a higher price, we'll have more output. At lower prices, businessmen are thinking, gosh, I'm not going to make a killing on this. There's no reason to knock myself out, and unless real output is made. So that's the upward sloping aggregate supply curve. It slopes upward because with input prices fixed, changes in the price level will raise or lower real firms' profits. So they're going to make more stuff. So that's the aggregate supply in the short run. Now, the long run, input prices are also flexible. And so what that means is if we have started off at price level 1 and we're making that much output, it's a rate of output, we're going to call it Y1, and the price level goes up to price level 2, and businessmen see extra profits, so they pump up their machines, their factories, they make more output, and we're at a rate of production that would result in Y2, real output in the economy. The problem is, as they gear up their factories, workers are going to be stressed. They're working overtime. We're looking for more workers. We have to draw workers away from other things that they may have been doing. We have to pay higher wages. So input prices start going up. We need to find more raw materials. So we're bidding raw material prices up. And again, input prices have risen. And so as those input prices rise, producers see that, gosh, I can't make that much output anymore. It's just costing me way too much to make it. And they back off to a lesser amount. And we wind up with this vertical, long-run aggregate supply curve that basically says that anytime prices are bid up and we looks like we want to make more output, input prices are eventually going to be driven up, and the short-run aggregate supply curve is actually going to shift back to the left. Okay, we're going to wind up on aggregate supply curve number 2. We'll call that number 1 over here. And we wind up simply making the same output that we were before at a higher price. So that's the rationale for the long-run aggregate supply curve being vertical. Now I need to make one more point. This video is getting a little longer than I wanted, but one more point on this. This point right here, Y1, where the vertical long-run aggregate supply is, that is the economy operating at full employment. So this would be, we'll call it Y. Instead of calling it Y sub 1, I'm going to call it Y full employment, YFE. And we're going to be using that a lot, okay, the full employment level of output. And I'll explain that more in the next video.